Hello, I am Jennifer of Jen and Coco. I hope you all are having a wonderful day today, because we are going to be diving in to more of our language. We're going to be picking up where we left off last time, and we'll be discussing valency. We're starting off discussing valency, and then after that, we'll be talking some more about how our pronouns are going to work, as well as actually coining some terminology, or coining some morphemes for these things. So, I'm excited for this. Let's hop on in, and let's get started today. So these are the words that we were working with that we created last time, and we were looking at some more words like to die, and words like that, and wondering to die, to hunt, and those sort of things. I'm wondering if there's going to be like a causative form, because there's a difference between to die and to kill. One is just it happens, but one was there was an intent, at least if maybe not an intention behind it. There was an actor behind it specifically. It's not just to die, to kill. To die is a intransitive verb. You have one person. You have one agent in that sentence. You have or one subject rather. You just have Timmy died versus Carl killed Timmy. Those are two different sentences with subtle different meanings, and both of them, Timmy winds up dead, but it depends on whether that was at someone's hands or not, or something's hands. So we should look into whether or not we're going to have lexical or grammatical valency changing operations. So let's start with looking at since we're already on the subject, let's start with causatives. So we have a couple options. We could do we could either just set up an affix that's just going to already be as part of the language. I don't really want to do that, because it doesn't really fit with how we've set up all of our other verbs so far, so we'll save that option for later. What we have other options for is that we could do, causative here. I think we're going to make it work similarly to all our other ones. It's going to start off as an auxiliary verb. But here's the thing, so which means could potentially get our tense and aspect markings onto it, which I think provides some nice ideas here that we're going to work with. So causative, so we have first our past. Let me just do this. Okay. So, and our causative, I think we're going to have is to command, or some command word. So it's not going to just be our causative, it is also going to become, or be, consider our imperative as well. So there's going to be some overlap there, which I think was going to be good. So, I had some cinnamon and cayenne to my hot chocolate in there. I may have added just a touch too much cayenne. Or it just didn't dissolve in as much as I'd like. Okay. So. Yeah, I like this idea of having this meaning to command and it being both a causative and a imperative. So it's implying that and it just depends on the context. Like if it's saying if I'm either talking to you, or if it's I, or if the subject is I in the sentence, then it's probably an imperative. Otherwise, in context, yeah, I would make it clear whether it's an imperative or a command. So I'm not too worried about that. So let's start off with, or the other thing that we can do is since we have these distinctions here, we have our simple. So this is going to be the simple present form, and this is going to be our nomic form of this, so essentially a statement of truth. I kind of like that being what becomes our imperative, almost. of this is going to happen, no question on that. So this is actually where our imperative is going. It is going to be slightly different from our causative. There may have been at one point early on in the language where essentially the context of what's happening around and the context of the sentence would determine whether it's imperative and causative, but we're past that point. We're now at the point where they've separated out a little bit. And these might have there might be some overlap still, but for the most part, this is going to be your imperative and this is going to be your causative. And it's worth noting here that these perfective and imperfectives are what these were intended to be, not what they necessarily are anymore. So, and I think these are just going to be, I think these are just going to be simple, I caused this to happen, I was causing this to happen. I think I like that. So just an imperfect past causative. And a perfective past causative. Awesome. Can work with that. The other main valency changing operation that I'm aware of would be the passive voice. I want to include it. I just don't know how I want to incorporate it in yet. We could use a word like to take or something like that. So let's play around with what would happen if we did include it. And I'm actually going to. Well, actually, okay. Pass or non-pass. Our perfective and our imperfective. Awesome. So, I think this one's just going to maintain these. It's just going to be a pacified version of our basic construction. So I don't think there's going to be really any change. Because let's think about this. So simple present, that's just saying, yeah, this happened to me. I was pushed. There. So this, our nomic. Can we do a passive nomic phrase? So let's come up with a nomic phrase that uses a transitive verb. So let's say, just I'm thinking of a lot of intransitive verbs or intransitive nomic phrases. Just I had it right there. It was let's just say Sue loves Jim. Easy enough. So in this, yes, Sue loves Jim. And we're saying this is a general statement of fact. There is no question. It is birds flying, bees sting, and Sue loves Jim. And so Jim is loved by Sue. Yeah, that would work. It just is. And then so this is not going to have any effect. It's not like we're going to have an imperative that's special. So these are all going to be maintained similar to how our past and non-past and all that works. So that's good. Okay. So now we're going to need words for to command and to take. So let's hop on over to our lexicon. and to see if they have any other, if we want to add anything else in these. To command, to take, and these are verbs. Okay. So here we're going to do I just gotta find a word real quick. Or some words real quick, rather. Okay. Wait. To command. I don't like that. Ooh. Here's one I like more. Oops. Coupa. Yeah, coupa. Okay. And then for our next one, we're going to have that's going to be our first syllable. Okay. Afa. So we have kupa and afa. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot, actually. I think that gives us some good distinguishing here, while also still separating out just, yeah, I like this, and I don't think we have anything like this so far. Oh, that's going to get interesting as we continue on with this. Okay, so Alpha. Okay, so next, we said we're going to talk about pronouns, so let's talk about our pronouns. So, we've established that we might have, or that we are going to have not just 6 noun or 5 noun classes we had established earlier, that we're actually going to have 6 noun classes. That we're going to have an inanimate and a lower inanimate. Normal and lower. Okay. So, we're going to have to reform this some. Because we don't have to reform it completely. But at the very least, we need to distinguish that we have an inanimate and a lower inanimate. So, and that's if that sticks around. It may not get used. This one may exist, but it may also just be, hey, this is not quite a. There's not many words in this category, so it's just not going to get used and just gets forgotten about, which honestly may be what happens. So the real question here is, so we have our Flaunal avian distinctions, and we have roughly what fits in those categories. And the lower animacy distinctions, essentially the non-human distinctions, are here to say, hey, these things are share characteristics, or this thing shares more characteristics with more Flaunal characteristics than avian, but it is clearly not actually Flaunal. It is not human, as it were. And so And that's where these two distinctions come in. And because of the just timeline of things, the lower inanimate could potentially form, since this is coming from the word meaning rock, or rock-like as it may be in this instance. So this would be things that are not quite like a rock, but are still not Flaunal or Avian. So it is a definition of double opposition almost, because the inanimate is in opposition to anything that is not Flaunal or Avian. And so our lower inanimate would be in opposition to things that are actually inanimate. Or to things that are rock-like, rather, which is a bizarre concept. Yeah. So what we were really going to look at here was actually creating terminologies for our pronouns here. Because once we do that, that opens up a lot of basic sentences that we can now start to say. Without having to worry about worrying names or titles or anything like that. However, in order to do this, we're going to need to come up with words meaning like counsel, respect, elder, and those sort of things. So we have our work cut out for us right here. So, and plus we need to come up with a nominative, accusative, and genitive form of all of these as well. Oh my. Although we haven't really worked with how case is going to fit in, so we're going to be working with like early ones. So let's just start with the nominative, because the accusative and the genitive are going to form when our case markers affix onto our pronouns. So, first person, we have, that's the one we got the most freedom with. Let's see, so, I believe this is what we're going to use for this one. One moment, please. Yeah, we're going to use, the first person is going to be ah, ah, ah. Okay. So our evolution of our pronouns, I kind of established that our pronouns come first. So let's start with, let's come up with some of the base ones. So we know, let's come up with a base second person. We may not or may not actually wind up using this, but we're going to come up with something. Actually, we're going to say fi, fi. And now these are actually going to stem, our Flaunal and our Avian are going to stem from our lexicon here. So, since we know our word for Flaunal is I, that's going to stem from that. And our word for avian is going to stem from ari. So yeah, right now some of our pronouns are not going to look different. At least to start off with, our pronouns are not going to look terribly different from our gender markings, which is actually not a bad thing. So, our inanimates, that's our word for rock, is going to stem from our word for rock, which is blah, blah. Oh, I should have. So we have fi, fi, ri, blah. Now we have these forms, which are going to have rapa included in them. Well, we're going to do this for a moment. Because that's an adjective, it goes after, it follows our animacy here, or our actual noun. So yeah, our flaunal creatures are avian creatures. Things that are not quite flaunal are not quite avian. Are rocks, and things that are not quite rocks. I can start with this. So, this is how we're starting. And remember, this is just proto. As we start to evolve our language, we're going to reduce these down, and really try and make these smaller. This is just when people start using pronouns, this is how they're going to start looking, at least initially. So our informal are pretty much going to be the same, so these are actually going to be our informal forms, because there's not going to be any difference there, now that I think about it. So actually, I'm going to knock those out. Okay. And for our high formal and formal, so we need to come up with words meaning some of these definitions here. Let's start with formal, so something meaning respect or elder. We could just come up with a word that means older, potentially, or old or elder. Ooh, if we have a word meaning old as an adjective, and then we have a way to derive it. Actually, we do have a way to do that. I have an idea. And the wind is really blowing outside. Okay, so we have old. Okay, and this is going to be, and yeah, I have an idea, and I like it, and we're going to run, I think we're going to do this. Okay, so old, respected. They're gonna mean, it's gonna mean the same thing. And that word is going to be as soon as I find something I want here from my list. So I want something with a middle tone, I think, so let's see. Ooh, this would be fun. Okay. So I think we're going to use la, la. Yeah, la. So, and to make this into a elderly Flaunal creature, an elderly avian creature, and these are relative terms. Noun, we're going to have there we are. So let's hop back over to here, because I think these are going to add on. So these initially mean just which means actually we have a distinction between avian and actually here we already have a format here, so I think we're going to back form this rather than we have two options. We have three options here. Either for how to come up with our second person formal. Either we take he and just add ra on the end of it, so saying you respected person or you older person, or we use our Flaunal term here, so that would mean even when if you're talking directly to someone, you're going to refer to, and they are older than you, or at least in a slightly more respectable position, you are going to use or yeah. So if they're in a slightly more respected position, based on some cultural stuff that we've talked about before, you would use the Flaunal one, even if you're talking to an avian creature. That is an option. The third option is that we have both a avian formal and or a Flaunal formal and avian formal. I don't want to do that one. That much I know. So we either have fila or uya, fila, fila. Both are fine. Both would produce good results in my opinion. So here's the idea. We're going to use phi here and add la to the end of it, because I think we're going to do for a high formal, we're going to have the same term for both third person and second person. So it doesn't matter if you're talking directly to them or just talking about them, you're going to use the same term because it's more of a title and less of a it is more of a title and less of something that it's more of a title than anything, as well as it cannot be applied to avian creatures, period. At least not without a big cultural revolution. So, okay. Let's look at so let's create a term for this. So, we have a couple options for the term we can create. It just needs to mean council or head of household. We have options on how we get there. So, hello, wind. So, real questions here. So if we have our high formal, so options that we have: 1, to derive it from something meaning respect or elder or such. It's an idea. I don't think that's what we're going to go with. Yeah, because this always gets used among council members. And by heads of household if you are not a head of household. Or use for heads of household if you yourself are not a head of household, or potential thereof. So we may almost want to divide our high formal into 2, one for specifically for the council and one for just general heads of household. Though no, that seems a bit much. So I think we're going to lean towards head of household, which in that case using may work. Or yeah, we're going to need another form of I think we need a word for kid, almost. Or gets reduplicated as kind of like an or intensified somehow. So let's see. Ooh. And have other questions, but we'll get to those in a moment. Okay, let's consider our high formal distinction form. So let's see our options. We use our word meaning elder or respected. I don't think that's what I want to do. I think I want to come up with something slightly different. It's gonna have to have. It's likely to have Flaunal in there. Maybe like something meaning like firstborn. Or old nest. Ooh, first nest. Or so many options, so many options. Respect, such, We'll come back to that one, because right now we're spending more time than I'd like on that one. Because there's a lot of... what I'm running up into right now is I think... So, okay, let's actually... So, options. We mentioned that it could mean something with kid, which means we'd have to come up with a word for kid. Not worried about that aspect. So, high formal, formal. What else would we use? So for a high formal distinction here, oh boy. Okay, so we can derive it from something meaning kid, and we can add the respected or a first, or something that means respected or first or something like that onto it. So like first kid or firstborn. We do have a word for birth. To hatch, to sprout, to grow. Appa. Appa. Yeah, appa. Appa. So, yeah, to sprout, to grow, to hatch. In this case, we'd be focusing on the sprouted. So, can we derive that or we don't have a strategy right now to derive that into a noun. That is a fair point. And I think that's one thing we're going to want to look into is creating some derivational morphology to work with, because that'll vastly increase our number, or how far our morphemes can go. We do have some of that with like how our verb system allows for some of that, now that we have causatives and such, but those aren't necessarily derivations as much as grammatical and syntactical strategies. But we'll get to that in a moment. I'm hoping to end this session with we're going to speak some actual sentences here, or potential sentences. So, e, u, u, e, So many options here, and I'm not sure what. I think we're going to come back to this one in particular, because this one is giving us trouble right now. But yeah, like I said, let's create some sentences, since we actually have that ability to now. So I'm actually going to open up our proving ground, since that is the perfect spot for us to do this. And we're going to create a new sheet in here for sample sentences. If I can spell sentences right. So, let's create some basic sentences here, knowing with what we have currently in the language. So, if we want to say, let's say we're a Flaunal creature here. So we have let's go with oop, wrong button. Yeah. It's hot. Okay. Oh, that's not quite where I meant to put that. So I hunt prey, except I just put that in the wrong spots because this is SOV, not SVO, so this needs to go here. This goes here. Okay, so this is I prey hunt. And this is I am hunting prey. So we have hafa, ha, hafa, afu, ha, hafa, afu. And we're saying basic sentences here now. Woohoo! Okay. Early sentences in this language we can now make. Fantastic. I love this. Now let's say we were talking to someone else, maybe to a or to an avian creature here. Let's say you, and we're just saying a basic sentence about them. Actually, hold on. We could say a basic anomic. Let's go with anomic sentence here. So let's make a anomic construction, as it were. So we need our word for to have. But first, let's go with this word here. So, our word for to eat. And then our word for to have. Okay. You eat. Or no, that's not eat. You nectar eat Nog. There we are. Fibrica. Kiku. Fibrica. Iku. Fibrica. Kiku. Hey, I'm happy with that. Yeah, this is our basic structure we have here. So, and actually, and we do know that eventually this here is going to actually be, it's going to become one word. So it'll be kiku, kiku kiku kiku, 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 kiku kiku, 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 yeah, there we are. But right now we're going to say that we're still in the proto-language of our proto-language, as it were. And yeah, this is how we're starting. We have some basic sentences. You eat nectar. Just a statement of fact. It is your diet. Now, other things. Ooh. I think using our causative, we can make a interesting statement here. Let's see. We need. Wrong one. Let's go back to our pronouns over here. Let me grab snag. So let's say you were talking about one of your older Flaunal siblings. You could say the sentence, let's see, so, uya, uya. And actually, let's talk about ba-ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba. So we're talking about a Flaunal creature to someone we respect, probably a Flaunal creature in this, or likely a Flaunal creature, either our age or older. And then we have, let's what's the other word I needed? To command. And then we needed, what's the other word we needed? It was, dang it. So one thing we need to figure out is the exact order of our past and our, that's the fusion marker, whoops, of our past and our perfective, because that's going to affect how they mush together and all that. We'll come up with that in a moment, but at least I want to talk about what this sentence means, so... Flaunal creature. Flaunal creature, you respected you formal birth caused past perfective. So yeah. So is it coupe un or a coup? Coupe un, a coup? I think I like this, of past coming before the perfect. No. I think it'll make more sense for the past to follow the perfective. There. So we have a coup. Yeah. So, essentially, that Flaunal creature gave birth to you. Yeah. Ta-da! I think that's going to be enough sentences for right now. We got some basic sentences. We even figured out a little bit of syntactic morphology here. Not sure if that's the right term to use for that exact sentence, but at least we figured out some of our word order, and now that's going to affect things, so that's good. That's actually very good. It gives us a lot more options as we continue onwards. And so yeah, this is... And actually, yeah, these are actually going to be... These are combined now, so... Aku. There we are. See? Perfect. We're down. That person caused you to sprout. They're the reason you're alive. I actually like this a lot. Okay, awesome. So this, we have the start of our language. We have a lot more to work on. Some things we need to work on are some of our physiological terms. That's going to create a lot of questions and answers. So that's one thing we're going to want to start looking into. So physiology. We still need to figure out how we're going to address our head of household. So familial terms is going to be another whole thing to discuss. So those are probably what we're looking at for the rest of this week, is some of those cultural aspects. Because as we begin to create those will help provide a basis for some of the idiosyncrasies and idioms that we're going to use throughout the language. Because family is going to be I'm not going to say super, is not going to be critical, but certainly in that respect and the age is going to be important, and that's going to reflect both in how the in the familial word structures are the word structures for familial people, as well as they'll probably provide some patterns and idioms that'll reverberate throughout the rest of the language. So in our physiology, we've already mentioned before, and we'll keep mentioning that because of the difference between our two physiologies that we have in this culture, that's going to produce some interesting terminologies and as well as some interesting idioms. You might even have some interesting idioms where it might be comparing the beak of a flaunal creature to the beak of an avian creature to make a point of something. So, yeah, there's some good ideas here. We'll continue with this on Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern. That is going to be March the 9th. So, if you would like to join me in there, I'd love to have y'all. Thank you for joining me today. I will be hopping on Twitch in just a moment. Probably play some Crusader Kings 3. So feel free to join me there as well today. Thank you for joining me and have a wonderful rest of your day.